Thank you so much. And there's so much to cover on this particular topic because when it comes to physical health, mental health, emotional health, psychological health, there is so much to cover. So we have a lot to cover, but we only have a limited amount of time. And I know that you want to hear from all three of them. So I'm going to direct my next question to Dr. Amadi. You talked about that biofeedback machine and all of the results that it gives you about a particular person, including their mental health and their psychological health. So my question to you is, why is it that this machine is not popular in traditional medicines when we go to the doctor?
Well, first of all, I'll make a slight differentiation between traditional medicine and conventional medicine because traditional medicine preceded in time conventional medicine. And, you know, looking at it from, let's say, an indigenous people perspective, when people went to their healthcare practitioner, they brought with them whatever was going on with them, mentally, physically, and emotionally. And it wasn't expected that that practitioner would just divide them up into different aspects and categories and have a different practitioner for each aspect and category. So I'm a holistic practitioner and I like to deal with people as whole people and not just as a medical entity. So, one of the reasons why this device is not well accepted is because the reality of the situation in America is that the so-called healthcare delivery system is really being run by big pharma and the hospitals and the insurance corporations. And, I hate to sound jaded or whatever, but the system is not designed for people to be healthy. If it were, then doctors would be taught about nutrition. Do you know in 2018, only 1 out of 4 medical schools has any instruction at all on nutrition? So that showed, but all of them have pharmacology, I can assure you. So, that's what they value. And it's much easier, even if you were to show the machine that I use to most other doctors, I think it's so fabulous and I can't imagine practicing without it now because so many things that are missed in a normal doctor's appointment will be quite obvious by looking at the person on the machine. So for example, a lot of times people can go into their regular doctor's office appointment, let's say for their annual physical, and that doctor won't necessarily know whether this person is depressed or not. If they don't ask the person, or if the person is not consciously aware of it themselves, they're going to miss that. And besides, how much can you really do for somebody in an average doctor's office visit of 6 or 7 minutes? You basically have time to say hi to them, ask them what's going on, write them a prescription, and go on to the next one. And my patient appointments typically last, for a new patient appointment, 2 hours. For a follow-up patient appointment, an hour to hour and a half is common. So, these are chunks of time in which you can really do something for somebody. And when you are using a tool like that, you can know a whole lot about them, and also you will have the time to both ask them what they're doing in their lifestyle habits, which most doctors don't allow themselves the time to do, except for maybe cursory questions in the history about do you smoke and do you drink. But other than that, they don't know how many glasses of water the patient drinks each day. They don't know when the patient goes to bed at night or when they wake up in the morning. They don't know what kind of exercise they do or if they do any. There's so many things. They don't know what kind of food they eat or how they prepare it. So, it's not just using the machine to enable me to identify things that are subclinical, that have not shown up on their blood work yet, or have not shown up on their x-rays or scans yet, but it's also giving me the time to talk with the patient and to identify, what lifestyle habits they have that are serving them and which ones they have that are not. And part of what I do is to write down instructions for how the person should make changes in their lifestyle habits, because it's really the thinking which brings forth the lifestyle habits that causes people to be either well or sick. And I don't care how many times the person visits me, if they're not going to incorporate my suggestions as to what they should be doing differently in their lifestyle, then it's a waste of my time and their money.
One thing I like about holistic medicine is that, first of all, let me ask you, what is the operative term in the word holistic? Whole. So with holistic medicine, they deal with the whole person. And as Dr. Amadi stated, most conventional or traditional, most doctors that you go to, they treat the symptoms. They don't treat the root cause. And in holistic medicine, they dig deep to find out what the root cause is. Because if you treat the symptom only, it's like just cutting the flower but not pulling up the root. So eventually it's going to rise back up again. My next question is for Mr. Thomas. In speaking about fitness for women, what are some of the common mistakes that women make when trying to start or implement a fitness program?
So I think you can break it down into 3 areas. One, they tend to do too much. Think about it. When you haven't done anything for a long time, you don't have to go from 0 to 100 in order to get results. I make a joke to all my clients about how I approach it, and it's basically like trying to boil a frog. How do you boil a frog? You boil it slowly. You put it in cold water, and you gradually bring the temperature up. And by the time it's boiling, it thinks it's in the jacuzzi, and it's so that's essentially how you should approach your exercise in that way. So start slow. You don't have to kill yourself. The second mistake is that there's no acquisition of skill. Just like you have a routine that you do for your job, just like you have a routine for whatever you do for your chosen profession, your fitness regimen and your fitness lifestyle, it has to be built around the acquisition of skill. Because if you're just doing a routine without actually understanding why it works or really mastering anything, you're never going to be connected to what it is that you're doing, and you won't find importance in it, and you won't become anything more than what you already are, because you're not acquiring it, you're not owning the information. So whatever you're doing, make sure that you're acquiring the skill, learning how to move your body at a fundamental level. As a holistic fitness coach, I was taught in a very simple way. Like, imagine if we were all living in the wild and we had to perform specific movements in order to survive, right? I was taught that there were 7 movements. You give me any program, any fitness regimen, and they are a derivative of these 7 movements: squatting, lunge, bend, push, pull, and twist. If you cannot, as a human being, perform these movements, your quality of life is going to be greatly diminished. I'll take you through an example of each one. Squatting, getting in and out of a chair, getting in and out of your car, getting on and off of a toilet. Those are all squatting patterns. So even if you're not squatting with a bunch of weight on your back, you still have to perform the movement at a base level to have a good quality of life. What's a lunge? A lunge is going upstairs, stepping over an object. Even getting in and out of your car is a variation of a lunge. It's actually more of an advanced lunge. Getting out of your car is a combination of a lateral lunge with a squat and a twist. So it's a very complicated movement when you break it down. Bending pattern, bending over to pick up your groceries, bending over to pick up your child, picking anything up off the floor typically requires a squat and a bend pattern. A push, getting yourself off the floor. Let's say you're lying on your stomach. To get yourself up off the floor, you need to do a push pattern. Same thing with a pull. If you're sitting, you need to pull yourself up. Even if you ever watch a baby just learn how to walk, they're pulling themselves. So, and then twisting is essentially walking. In order for someone to walk properly, they have to be able to rotate from their spine better. So twisting is essentially the impetus for all of the other patterns. And twisting is also needed for gait, which is 3 components: walking, jogging, and flat out sprinting. So if you can just, like, if you had 10 minutes a day, you can focus on one primal pattern, and that will be it. One day focus on squatting. One day focus on stair climbing, another day focus on picking some things up. So you can steal workouts just by just paying attention to it. You don't need to go to a gym. You don't need to do any of that stuff. So just by paying attention to at least one pattern a day, you can stay functional, which is at the end of the day what you're trying to do. So.
Thank you so much. My next question is for Narissa. Narissa is an author. She's the author of a book called 31 Days of Yes. Did you bring the books, Narissa? Okay, they are for sale on the table over here. And her book focuses on soul-based self-care. Although I do want to ask her about that, I'm going to switch it a little bit because primarily Narissa is on the panel, among other things, to talk about the Blue Zone. Now, I recently just learned about it, and from my understanding, it is a geographical designated area where everybody in this little area, let's just say this is the big area, and then there's just a little patch of people that live here. All of those people have optimal health. And so Narissa's going to expound on that a little bit, and then she's going to talk to us about how we can create our own personal environment of a Blue Zone. Can you elaborate on that for us?
Hi. So what's interesting is that there are actually a few hospitals around the country that are trying to look at what Blue Zones are doing. And Blue Zones, there are 6 known Blue Zones. Sardinia, which is in Italy. Japan has one, Costa Rica, and there's a couple in Greece. But specifically what you need to know about the Blue Zones is this. Everyone in a Blue Zone is committed to the health of their neighbor. Everyone in a Blue Zone, relatively everyone, is committed to the health of their neighbor. Here's what that looks like. They have dinner together. Not only that, most of them grow their food locally. And when they grow their food locally, they share it. Okay? They do work. Physical labor. If they're doing their gardening, they don't ask someone, they don't hire someone to come in. All of these places that are Blue Zones, a lot of them, like the places in Japan, you have to climb up somewhere to go to it. These places are dedicated to 2 things: maintaining consistent physical labor and caring for their neighbor. So it's not just a matter of, and they also, the foods that they eat, they're locally based foods. So they're not necessarily going out somewhere to get foods and importing them in, which is very key. If you live in an area, the food that grows naturally in your area grows in that area to feed you and to give you the nutrients that you need to stay in that area. Think about people who live in the Caribbean, and they talk about all these great foods that they have. The Caribbean is hot. It's humid. It's hard to live there unless you are getting some really great nutrition. Do you get that? So the things that you need to survive and to thrive are usually growing right next to you. But what we like to do, we like to get imported stuff. And that's nice. Variety is cute. I mean, it is. But think about how the universe is set up. Okay, and that's part of what we really need to be clear about creating our own personal Blue Zone, which is an environment that supports your thriving. Most of the people who live in Blue Zones, and why people are scientists are studying them very hard, is because people live to 100 and thriving 100, like they're on their bikes going up the road with logs on it, that kind of thing. And it's because it's not just a physical thing that's going on. There is an environment around them, which is why it's a zone. There's an environment that takes care of them, going back to the word holistically, not just physically. What if you live someplace where your neighbor really cared for you and cared about your well-being? So personally, what I want you to focus on when you're talking about your personal blue zone. There's a couple of things I want you to do. Number one, I need you to look at your environment. Your car. If I go into your car right now, what am I going to find? Uh-oh, there was some giggles. I understand. Like, I'm a teacher. I'm an educator. What? I get it. But it's got to stop. It does. The clutter is something that reinforces clutter in the mind, clutter visually. And then personally in your mind, what kind of space are you creating in your mind? How are you affirming yourself? How do you have things that tell you who and what you are all around you? That's how you create your own personal blue zone. And of course, the people who are in your lives. So, I mean, tying it, if you wanted to tie it back to 31 Days of Yes, the yeses that you're making, they're very specific yeses. And they're yeses that are uncommon. And they're all spiritually based. And when you get through those yeses, you'll understand that you've created around you a spiritual environment that does nothing else but open the doors for the universe to move for you.
Thank you so much, Narissa. I'm going to direct my next question to Dr. Amadi, but I am a firm believer that your outward environment is an indication of your inward environment. So when I walk in my bedroom and I see clothes all over the place and shoes, I say, okay, what's going on with you on the inside? And I get to cleaning up. Okay, Dr. Amadi, my question is as it relates to microwave food. Now, there are some things that I do microwave, but there are some things that I just cannot do. I don't totally cook a whole meal in the microwave. I use it to warm up things, but I've seen people cook bacon, cook hot dogs in the microwave. Can you talk to us about, just talk to us about microwaving food?
I can talk to you about that, but you might not like what I have to say. And that is that if you knew what I knew about it, you wouldn't do it, not even to warm up water for tea or coffee. Because what it does, well, first of all, when you warm up or cook food in the microwave, it destroys all of the enzyme content of the food. So all heating will destroy a certain amount of enzymes, but when you microwave food, it destroys all of the enzymes. But even if you're not cooking in the microwave, even if you're just warming up something that has previously been cooked conventionally in the microwave, by exposing it to those kinds of frequencies, you're actually imparting an inflammatory energy into the food, and then you drop it down your gullet where it spreads out from your intestines to your blood, to your muscles, to all of the rest of your body. So if any of you, have trouble believing how harmful this is, and if any of you are thinking by any chance that the FDA or the USDA or the US government in some form would actually be banning the sale of microwave ovens if they were harmful for us, just remember that they allow all sorts of other things that we know are harmful for us, like cigarettes and firearms and alcohol, to be sold, and as long as they can get tax money off of it, they're fine with that. But here's a very simple experiment that, somebody in grade school can do. Take 2 beans or similar seeds, plant them in 2 exactly similar pots, water one of them with spring water and water the other one with spring water that was first microwaved and then allowed to come to room temperature. And just look at how those plants look, those seedlings look, within about a week and a half. One of them that was watered with normal water will look normal. The other one that was watered with water that had been first microwaved will look all distorted, like its DNA is, mutating. And we all know that actually radiation does cause mutations in our DNA. So why we would want to be radiating our food or water first before we consume it, I have no idea, but just don't be lulled by the false sense of security that it's okay, or that the few seconds you save when you're doing that actually are worth it. Because if you will just do a little bit more planning, and start sticking your stuff on the stovetop or in the oven or in the toaster oven or in the convection oven while you're getting ready for work, you can just warm up everything in the way that people used to. And they still made it to work on time, and they didn't have any microwaves, and they were a lot healthier. So,
Thank you so much, Dr. Amadi. Now, once you are brought into the truth or the knowledge of something, you are therefore then accountable for it. So you heard what she said about the microwave. And for those of you that have grade school children, I think it's a really good science experiment to water two, one with regular and one with microwave water, and then see. As I stated earlier, when we really get the conversation good and going, it's almost time for it to end, and I do want to allow everyone to have, or a few of you to have questions, so I do want to leave a segment for that for the last 10 minutes. But I do have this one last question for Terrence Thomas. Based on your experience, what do you find is the number one obstacle that keeps women from experiencing optimal self-care?
I think that boils down to priorities, first off, and priorities and standards. You have to put yourself first in this area. I mean, it has to be a part of your daily routine. Whatever that you're doing now, it's effortless. You wake up, you make your coffee or whatever it is that you do, and you go. You don't think about it. So the only thing that has to happen is that you have to make this lifestyle a priority. It's going to take about 21 to 30 days in order to do it, but it's about putting it to the forefront, and that's what it boils down to. I wish I could make it more complicated, but at the end of the day, it's just about, one, prioritizing it and believing that you deserve to take care of yourself at this level. It's going to pay dividends. It's going to be whatever you put into this, it's going to pay you back 100-fold. So that's pretty much it.
And what can you share with us as to any do's and don'ts as it relates to, you know, if we're on that path to work out and be, I guess, more fit, do you recommend that we do anything along those lines in terms of taking protein?
Absolutely. But that being said, your base diet is always going to be your foundation. You're getting adequate amounts of protein from natural food sources, carbohydrates and fats. Your base macros have to be in place first, but then if you're starting to get more rigorous with your exercise, be it strength training, endurance work, the extra protein can help depending on the quality. I always choose, if you're talking about whey protein, it's going to come from grass-fed sources, no artificial sweeteners, but taking the protein supplements around your exercise time, either during or post, is going to allow for better recovery. It's going to allow for quick absorption, which gets into the system to allow for better recovery. Or you can combine a slower digesting protein, such as combining whey and or casein, that helps with regulating blood sugar. Sometimes you can do that before you go to sleep or that last meal to be able to keep the blood sugar stable during sleep, because whey protein does absorb quite fast. And if you happen to take it in before you go to sleep, you can get a blood sugar drop while you're sleeping, and that's going to disturb your sleep. Because anytime your blood sugar drops while you're sleeping, it makes your body produce adrenaline. It'll pull you out of a deep sleep, and you'll wake up tired even though you've slept 8 hours, which is another tip in terms of being able to make sure you're eating a good balanced meal around bedtime. Contrary to popular belief, people say don't eat late. It all depends on who's eating it. Everyone's metabolism is different. Everyone's nutritional requirements are different, and you'll just have to experiment with it. I personally need to eat something as close to bedtime as possible because I have a fast metabolism. And if I don't, my blood sugar will drop in my sleep, and I'll wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning looking at the ceiling because my adrenaline is up. So if you're one of these people who are waking up and don't know why, either it typically manifests in having to go to the bathroom, or you just up and don't know why. It's probably because you have a drop in blood sugar and your body's producing a lot of adrenaline.
Thank you very much. We're going to take the next question.
or I was in a horrific accident. I have a left leg that doesn't bend. I believe wholeheartedly in holistic healing because that's what's gotten me this far and it's given me my life back and my independence back. But it's a lot of things that I used to be able to do before the accident that I can't do. How do you incorporate some of the things you were talking about for people like me who can't do those particular type of things?
First off, there is no substitute for a good coach in this area. This is where a skilled coach will help guide you through these patterns. So essentially what has to happen is you can still perform any of the primal patterns. The patterns will just need to be descended. Remember, for example, if you can't, like, if it's hard for you to get up and down out of a chair,
Always.
so what we'll need to do is we'll need to descend the pattern. You can lie on your back, right?
Uncomfortably, but yes.
Okay, can you bend your knees?
Not the left.
A little bit?
Never. That's it.
Trust me,
That's my point.
if you can breathe, I will figure out the pattern. But here's the thing. Here's the beauty of this whole thing. Especially in a situation like this, if we start you in the right place, your body will progress back up into a more difficult pattern. So this is where someone like you would probably need to be evaluated, and then a program designed. But just know that you can. You can perform any of the patterns. You're probably performing most of the patterns now. You just got up out of that chair, so you just squatted for me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Like
So now we have to do it to where you can build fitness and do it in a way that you're not traumatizing your joints, and that can be taken care of with a simple evaluation.
And just briefly, it's the thing of forcing everything from this side of my body. And after a while, over the course of years, especially since 2009 when I was able to walk again, this side of my body has taken that beating. So how do I compensate that? How do I balance that? Because I feel that tension every day of my life.
You personally gonna need to be under the tutelage of a coach that's gonna be able to help shift those patterns, because right now you're using a lot of compensation patterns, and I can talk about it, but you're gonna need some help.
My question to you is, if you have been using a microwave, for a long period of time, and then you hear news like this, is it too late to stop, or is your body just affected with radiation and just carry it for the rest of your life?
It's never too late to stop, as long as you're still alive. Where there's life, there's hope. But, unfortunately, sometimes people will have a tendency to want to rationalize why they must still continue doing certain things. Once you know better, it's really incumbent upon you to do better, because otherwise, you really can't blame anybody but yourself if you're still doing the same things that, you've been educated are not helpful. But there actually are things that you can take that can help to mitigate the effects of long-term radiation in your body. For example, seaweed is something that is very good for that, and that's probably one of the reasons why the people in Japan did so well, even though they had, 2 nuclear bombs dropped on them. I think they're doing very well considering. So seaweed is one of the things that can help mitigate that. There's a homeopathic remedy that's good for that also. But the most important thing is just awareness. And since we're speaking about radiation, I'll just quickly mention something else that I think you all should be aware of, and that is electromagnetic fields. This was a form of toxicity and pollution that didn't even exist in its current state 50 years ago. There was no such thing as cell phones, no such thing as Wi-Fi, no such thing as, personal computers or the internet. And so I would just like to encourage all of you to go on the internet, Google EMF protection, and, buy devices that can protect you, because unfortunately the manufacturers of things like cell phones, they know about cell phone radiation and what it can do to you, but they don't want to have to spend the money to protect your device. They make you spend the money to protect your device if you even know that it's necessary. So I wear a device around my neck all the time because I sit in front of a computer all day long. I have a device that's on my phone that, shields my phone from cell phone radiation. I have a device that's in my car that helps to shield my car. I have a device that's plugged into my home, you know, and so there's all sorts of devices that you can buy, but my point is just to be aware that people do need this protection because unfortunately it's not being provided to us, and only those who are knowledgeable actually seek it out and purchase it. So.
I wanted to ask each of the panelists, though. Most of the time I hear when people ask about fitness, how do I start? Like, it's just getting started. So from each of you, what would be the key first step that you would advise in the holistic, the fitness, the spiritual realm to just get started? That one step just that everybody can just take to get this train moving.
So your first step is a step that I really feel our entire conference has talked about, and it's self-love. You need
Yeah,
to
clap about that. Clap on that one.
and I want you to know that, and I'm sure they'll all echo, it's a practice. It's not something that we have been ingrained with, that we've been trained with. It's a practice. And so what you're going to need to do is the times when you start your meditation, or you start creating your environment, or you start getting the toxic people out of your lives, you start being transparent, or you start to work with your vision board, or you start your exercise or things like that, you're going to fall off the wagon. Because the environment that is the default is not for that, is not for you to care for yourself. So it's a practice, and self-love, putting yourself not just first, but in joy. Choosing joy, saying yes to joy is a practice, and you're gonna fall off. So if you care for yourself, if you love yourself enough to, yesterday wasn't a good day, but you know what? Today's gonna be better.
Thank you, Narissa. Now that's her one first thing. Mr. Thomas, can you tell us what your one first thing is for us to get started?
Make it feel good. Make it feel good. If you're just getting started, everything needs to be therapeutic. You do not have to kill yourself. At this point, the energy in your body is typically stagnant because you haven't been moving. So this phase is what I call breathing and pumping. Breathing and pumping, whether it's just walking, whether it's just sitting and breathing, stretching, just get back in touch with your body. This is without any formal instruction, but just it's a mindset that I want you to adopt. Is breathing and pumping. That's where everything comes from, because if the blood is circulating through your body and you're moving fluid through your body, you're releasing pleasure chemicals, you're pushing toxins out of your body, and you're really just, that's where everything comes from. Regardless if I'm training an athlete or someone who's just had a stroke, that's where I'm starting them. So breathing and pumping is my first tip.
Okay, self-love, breathing and pumping, and Dr. Mahdi, your number one thing that we need to start first, and then we have to take our last question.
Well, I really agree with the idea of making it enjoyable, because if it's not enjoyable, then the person's not going to keep it up. And sometimes, you know, like for example, especially around New Year's, people get all inspired and they say, well, I'm going to completely do something. I'm going to spend an hour at the gym every day, you know, and that lasts for like maybe 2 weeks, you know, and then no, that's too hard. If you just will allocate 15 to 20 minutes a day doing something simple like walking, or something just like dancing when you listen to, you know, the radio or whatever. I mean, something that you enjoy doing. And some people like walking outside. Some people prefer to walk in the gym. Some people prefer to dance. But whatever it is that you like to do that for 20 minutes a day. If you just do that for 20 minutes a day, then you'll find yourself looking forward to it instead of trying to make excuses why you can't do it that day. And that's, you know, it's consistency over time that produces results. The body responds not to what you do every once in a while, but what you do most of the time.
My question is for Dr. Ahmadi. I really appreciate all of you. Dr. Amadi, more than 25 years ago, I was diagnosed with Graves' disease. And before then, I was very healthy, very fit. Then I did excuses once my thyroid was radiated as I went from hyper to hypo. The weight gain that I gained, I blamed it on the thyroid disease. But because I'm now taking T3 and T4, and as I'm getting ready to go into the next phase of my life with 61, my concern has to be, and I'm coming here for self-love, self-care, with the commitment of being healthy. Is there anything that you can tell me that I need to watch out for as it relates to hormones and for balance? If this is out of your phase, then if you have a direction, and I did get your card because I know I'm taking a chance just asking you this publicly, but I am committed, and that's the only medication that I'm taking, and that's the only medication I want to take. So can I lose weight?
Well, I really am glad that you asked that question, and it was kind of right up my alley because I really am very fascinated by hormonal balance because it affects not only the body, but it also affects the mind and the spirit. And so to me, that's irresistible. I'm actually currently working on a book that I hope will be having the manuscript finished towards the end of September. And so if any of you would like to, have me notify you when that's ready, please see me after. But there's a whole lot of mythology about hormones, and it's just sad because I believe that a lot of people who are 40 and 45 and older should be on bioidentical hormone replacement, but it's not usually done what I would consider to be properly. In other words, I think it's best to measure the person's hormones before you just put them on hormones, and that was something that they didn't used to do. They used to just put women routinely on Premarin and Provera, which I think is very dangerous. Second, I think it's best to stay within the species. So if you're going to be a human being, then it's best to take hormones that were, designed to work in the human body, not hormones from pregnant mare's urine, which is what Premarin was made of. And I think that there's a lot of things that happen to, for example, women who were taking these things that were dangerous, like cancer and blood clots and so on. And a lot of people really associate all bioidentical hormone with problems like that. These were not even bioidentical hormones. So in my practice, I encourage people to get measured on the machine, to get measured in blood, to get measured in saliva. And I believe, I've seen a lot of women who are on thyroid hormone medication who are able to either reduce the amount of thyroid hormone that they're taking, or safely add other ones like progesterone or pregnenolone and get a better balance because, this does affect your metabolism. And a lot of times they're just looking at and measuring thyroid stuff. They're not looking at what's going on with the adrenals. They're not looking at what's going on with your, male and female hormones. And I believe all of those things have to be evaluated at the same time because they all influence one another.
Thank you. Let's give all three of them a hand, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like Narissa to please report to her book station. As I've stated to you, we could be here for hours because they are filled with a wealth of information. And one thing I like about the three of them is that they all focus on the same thing. I actually saw Dr. Amadi, and she said that a standard appointment with her is about 2 hours, but I was there for 3 hours. I went to Dr. Amadi and the sun was up, and when I left, the sun had gone down, and that's the God honest truth. But she treats you like you are her personal family member. She asks a lot of questions so that she can get to the root cause of what's going on with you. One thing we did not touch on, which is really, really important, and it's a topic that we really don't like to discuss in public, is bowel movements. It is so important to have regular bowel movements. And I'm not ashamed to say, when I went to Dr. Amadi and she asked me, how often do you go? I said, every 7 days or so. And she said, well, that's the problem. She wanted to say, you're full of, But she didn't say that. I know that's what she wanted to say, but I'm gonna have to go. You all can continue to stay and talk if you like. I have to facilitate another segment of the conference. Let's give them another hand. Thank you all. You have been a wonderful audience.